radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? You know what it is. This is Fade to Black, and it's Monday, December 8th, 2025, heading straight towards Christmas, aren't we? Let's do this, man. Yeah, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This week on Fade to Black. Tonight, John Olsen is here, Stranger Bridgerland. Yeah. Tomorrow night, Dr. Heather Lynn is back with us, the Anunnaki Revelation. Wednesday night, Gary Hazeltine, live from the UK, Rendlesham. Thursday night, Jason Kenzie is here. That's right, he's a filmmaker searching for Sasquatch. I know you've watched his stuff. Well, he's going to be here with us on Thursday night. All right. My next event coming up is the Conscious Life Expo, and it is February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. Tickets and info are below. All right. I want to get straight to the show tonight, but a couple of thoughts before I do. Number one, Stranger Things. Holy crap, right? All right. So there's that. And then tonight, well, how does all of this tie together, right? It's my twisted mind. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the paranormal West, where I live, where John lives, John Olsen. And I talk about the stuff every night on the show. I really do. I live in a haunted house. That's the first thing. I've experienced my share of paranormal strangeness out there, both for film and TV and in person, and my own eyeballs, my own ears. There's all of that, plus the crazy stuff. Something will happen tonight in the studio because John is here. That'll be fun. I don't know what it is, but I get to experience that. But here's the thing. This is where my thought is going. As crazy as the paranormal West can be, as crazy as Stranger Things can be, nothing is nuttier, crazier, or scarier than the Bitcoin marketplace. I swear to you. You want real entertainment? Just go and hang out with a real-time feed of Bitcoin trading. I'm glad it's not my money. There are people out there with real money watching this horror story play out, and it's in real time, and you just watch the graph, and then minute by minute, second by second, hour by hour, the 24-hour clock, and you can look at 7 days and a month and a year, right? And just look at that madness. Yeah. So tonight, no matter what we talk about, it's not as crazy as the Bitcoin marketplace. Man. Oh, I wanted to say this. This is the horror story of the Bitcoin marketplace. And if you've ever watched Black Mirror, okay, Black Mirror is close enough to reality. It's strange and it's fun and it's great, but it's close enough to your day-to-day thing that it can be terrifying. It's funny. Joan is awful. Have you seen that episode, right, with Selma Hayek? It's just meant. Okay, so go and watch that. It's about quantum computing. All right, now just go and watch that and see how that plays out. How does that tie into the Bitcoin marketplace? You get inside of it, and this is what's really going on with the terror charts and the terror trading and the horror trading. Most people in Bitcoin are not playing with their own spare cash. right? You got $500,000 lying around in your savings account, and I know you do. And you just pull out $100,000 and you go buy a Bitcoin, and because it's money that you can waste. That's not who's in the Bitcoin marketplace. You know who's in the Bitcoin marketplace? People that go and borrow money at 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% interest in Japan. They've got zero interest loans, right? So they take that money, throw it into Bitcoin, hoping for these huge gains. Now, let's say you borrowed when Bitcoin was at $100,000, right? Okay, hoping for a 5%, a 10% return on your investment. But instead, Bitcoin now, and that money's in there. You owe that money. You have to pay it back. And Bitcoin starts trading at 90,000, 80,000. Well, you've just lost $20,000 per Bitcoin, and your loan is due. Most people in Bitcoin are playing with borrowed money. And think about the heart attacks, the real-time Black Mirror horror story that's playing out for those people that are watching that trading going on. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where my twisted mind goes. Man, that is paranormal. That is paranormal. I wonder if John Olsen has got Bitcoin. I wonder how his heart is doing today. That's right. Author and investigator John Olsen is with us tonight. He's got 9 books out. The latest book in the Bridger series is Idaho. Encounters, UFOs, cryptids, shadow beings, right? Portals, all of that stuff that is going on out here in the American West. We're going to talk about all of that tonight. How we got started in this. Is his house haunted? And everything else coming to us live from Utah. He's right there, John Olsen. John, good evening, young man. How you doing? How's your Bitcoin? How's your Bitcoin?
I don't have any Bitcoin. Luckily, I am not in that right now. Thank goodness. But it's crazy. So, but yeah, I'm doing well. So thanks to not having Bitcoin at the moment. So
yeah, so true. You know, and we're not obviously going to be talking about finances tonight and Bitcoin futures of something that is. You're buying in binary code. That's what's that just feels weird to me.
yeah.
But okay, so there is that part. But I can't imagine the nerves that go on. I was watching, and then we're going to get to the first time guest disclaimer in a second. Actually, let's get that out of the way before we can do the show. You're a first time guest. So here's the disclaimer. John, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. Now, you have to accept so we can move on.
I definitely accept.
Okay. The scariest, most dangerous thing I've ever done, and I've done a lot of things. I've robbed a bank or two, right? Okay, I've done some dangerous things. But the dangerous thing I've ever done that gets my heart racing when I think about it is I went inside the Bent Pyramid in Egypt. I've been to Egypt a lot. I've never gone back into the Bent Pyramid. Terrifying. 100, you're a paranormal guy. You're a ghost guy. Imagine doing this. A tunnel this big that you can look at me. I barely fit in, right? 150 feet at a 40-degree angle down into the ground. 150 feet. And you're crawling. You got to go backwards. It's too steep. You go face first, you slide.
Yeah.
And it's only this big. So your back is scratching on the roof and you're backing down. You can't, if you change your mind, you can't get out because you have somebody in front of you. You can't go around, right? You're stuck, right? So that claustrophobic thing. And you do this backwards for 150 feet, maybe 200 feet, and you get down into the bottom knowing it's bad air, smells like bat piss, and lack of oxygen combined with the bat piss. It's hot, it's steamy, and you can't get out. You have to wait for everybody to come down, right? And it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. Anyway, that racing heart thing that you get, right? That paranormal, I've just seen a ghost and you pee on yourself kind of panic. That's what the Bitcoin marketplace is. It gets my heart racing like the bent pyramid, and it's not my money. Is that why you're in this? Is that why you're in the paranormal? Is it, you like that shock, that adrenaline rush?
Well, I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, that's why a lot of people, love the paranormal. That's why, people love, ghosts, hunts, or going to a scare house. They're looking for that spike of adrenaline. And I think that's definitely part of it for me. I think the biggest thing now, after doing it for so many years, is just the fact that, I'm trying to figure this out. It's like a huge puzzle that I can't seem to find all the pieces to, exactly what's going on. I mean, you got everything from, your ghosts, and then you've got UFOs and Bigfoot and just, glitches in the matrix, all of these weird things going on. And to me, it's just fascinating because even after doing this for 40 years now almost, I find new things all the time, and I think that's what keeps me going. I hear stories where I'm like, I thought I'd heard it all, and now I'm hearing something new. So I think that's what keeps me going.
Isn't it amazing in the paranormal world how the goalposts are constantly moving forward, right? As soon as you think I got this, you ain't got it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what's really fun, at least for me, is I'll get a story that I think is a one-off kind of deal, and then I publish it, and it's like people come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, I thought I was the only one that had that experience." And then I end up with a ton of stories where I was like, "Man, this feels like a one-off," and then it's really not a one-off.
Where did Bridgerland?
Mhm.
So I see that, and I think of Jim Bridger out of the gate. Is that
Yep.
is that where it came from?
Yeah, it is. So northern Utah and part of Wyoming and part of Idaho is kind of unofficially called Bridgerland because Jim Bridger was the first one to map it and really explore it as a trapper. So a lot of the area is referred to as Bridgerland. We've got a Bridgerland College, the phone book when I was old was called the Bridgerland phone book. And so, yeah, that's definitely where that comes from.
Northern Utah, one of the most beautiful places in the world, hands down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to lay the foundation to the show, and I need to know what zone I can go into.
Mm-hmm.
Are you Mormon?
I am. Yep. I was raised LDS.
You are.
I am.
Okay. Okay. Do I have to stay in bounds then?
No, you can ask whatever you want to. It's interesting because a lot of people, when they find out, that I do this, and they're like, "Oh, you're LDS too?
Question.
That's weird." Yeah.
Does doing what you do, 9 books, is that Mormon? Do your Mormon friends look at you differently? Do they don't care?
I really don't know. They don't really care. And it's interesting because when I was growing up and I was raised LDS, our house was very haunted, which is what got me started in this. But there was this very, my parents were afraid to, don't talk about it outside of the house. And I don't know if that's necessarily because of the, it was just a tight-knit LDS community, and I think they were worried that people think we were crazy, but that wasn't necessarily just because it was LDS. But back then it was a lot more taboo. Now, I mean, I have a wrap on my truck with skulls and bats,
okay,
and it's just,
well,
and I drive that to church. So
you've got Skinwalker Ranch, number one show in America, maybe the world. Right. And that's right there in the heart of it. Yeah. Do you swear? Do you ever use bad words?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay. Because I might slip on this show. I try not to.
No. It's
but
all good.
it's a pure. I just want to
Yeah.
respect my guests.
No, it's
I
all
want to
good.
stay my. Okay, all right, all
It's
right.
all good.
So now that we got that out of the way,
Yeah.
but you mentioned your parents growing up and living in a haunted house, or whatever. Did you ever see a ghost growing up?
Yeah. There was one apparition that we all saw on several occasions. We called him the man in the hat when we were little kids because
Oh, really?
but it's not associated with the shadow man in the hat. We called him the man in the hat because he had overalls, a skinny guy with overalls, a white shirt, and then a wide brimmed hat, just like a farmer. And so as kids, when we saw him, we just referred to him as the man in the hat because he was always wearing this wide brimmed hat. And
A
I had
ghost of a ghost of a farmer. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Did you ever find out who he was?
I did, yeah. So the house was in my family since so it was built in 1883 and it was in my family from around the 1900s on. And when my grandma passed away, my grandma and grandpa only lived a block away from where I grew up, and we were kind of cleaning out the house, and she had some old photo albums, and I love old photo albums, and I'm flipping through it, and I flipped to a page, and I almost fell out of my chair because there was my house with a guy standing in front of it with a white shirt and overalls, and
Hello,
it was
hello,
him. And so I
hello.
hurried and flipped it over, and it was actually a great uncle of mine that owned it in the 1920s is who's in the house. So
How did he die?
he just passed away in his sleep in the house as an older
Oh,
guy.
okay.
So
It
yeah.
wasn't an axe murder in the front room.
No, not that I'm aware of. There was no murders,
Oh,
at least
man.
not that I know of. So
Woo, man.
yeah.
My house, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I moved in here, bought the place 5 years ago, and I live alone. So I don't know. I moved I moved from Burbank to Palmdale, right? Okay, so 40 miles down the road. And I'm new to Palmdale. I don't know anybody here. So getting a house like this, I don't know the background. I don't have any photo albums, whatever. And the second night that I was here, stuff started happening. Right. I mean, like out of the gate, right? And I'm cool with it. But I did go around. I didn't have the opportunity that you did. But I did go to my neighbors. I'm meeting everybody after about a month, throwing them softballs, right? You don't want to go straight in. Hey, man, anybody get killed in my house? You don't want to go there. But so I go to my neighbors. Who lived here before? Oh, nice family. They grew up and their kids all grew up and they just moved out. Oh, okay. That's it.
It.
That's pretty much it. Okay, you're sure about that? Okay, all right. And I asked everybody. I didn't get anything. So I did look into was this an Indian burial ground? Was it built on a former insane asylum? Right? But no, I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing, and I don't have any other way to check into it. So I don't know who is here. I haven't asked.
Yeah.
Right? I haven't asked the ghost. But I do talk to the ghost. Did you ever talk to yours?
Yeah, all the time. Interestingly enough, so there's at one point, I think it was about 5 years ago, my wife and I were moving, and our house. We sold our house, but the new house we were going to move into wasn't going to be available for about a month, and we were going to just stay in a hotel or a rent an apartment. And my parents, who still lived in the house at the time, said, "Why don't you live upstairs? And it's just a month and save your money." And I said, "Sure." And my wife was like, "Well, what about the ghost?" And I said, "Well, you know what? If we go in there and I say, 'Hey, this is Annie. She's scared of all this. Leave her alone. Don't bother her. Then he'll leave you alone.'" And So I did that, and we were there for a month, and for the first 3 weeks, nothing happened. And after 3 weeks, we were upstairs folding clothes, and my wife goes, you told me all these scary stories and nothing's happened. And I said, well, you asked me to tell him not to bother you. And then I out loud, I said, well, if you want him to introduce himself, I'm sure he would love to. And she just kind of laughed, and we kind of laughed it off. But that very next morning, I had got up and left for work early, and she was half asleep and heard me get up and then leave. And she was almost back to sleep, and somebody slipped into bed and put their arm around her. And then she realized I'd already gone to work. And she jumped out of bed and flipped the light on, and she heard a little bit of a laughter. And for the last week, he just was relentless about teasing her and doing things to scare the crap out of her.
I had a friend. He's probably in the chat room. He lives on the East Coast. Okay. His name is Ken. Ken, if you're here, say hello to everybody. Ken is crazy. He's real cool. And Ken is a professional. He owns a restaurant chain, national restaurant chain. And but we became friends many years ago. Really cool dude, right? Just a really cool guy. Anyway, he writes, I'm having a dinner party at my house, cookout, backyard, weekend thing. And he goes, man, I'm coming in, man, from the East Coast, and you want to hang out? I say, hey, man, I'm having a party. Now, so I invite him over, and he comes. I live next to Lockheed Skunk Works, right? That's right down, right there. You see it from my house. Okay, so he shows it. He's first. No, I'm sorry. He's second. My friend Lisa, who's probably also in the chat room, she's here. And Lisa and I have known each other since we were literally like kids. I'm 62. I met her when she was 18. Okay. I was 21, I think. So that's how long we've known each other for a long time. So she's here. Ken shows up. Her and Ken are friends. And they're the first two here. So Ken comes in and he goes, hey, man, I want to see Skunk Works. I said, okay. All right. And I said, Lisa, house is yours. Anybody shows up, yeah, you know everybody. Yeah, you guys go. So Ken and I jump in my Jeep and we split. We're gone for 30 minutes. I take him down to Skunk Works and drive him around, and we come back. We walk in the front door, and Lisa comes running in screaming, ah! I was like, what? There's somebody upstairs. I go, what? She goes, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting on the couch, and there's footsteps, and then I can hear them walking around, and clock, clock, clock. I said, Lisa, that's my ghost. Ah! I said, well, what do you expect? And so I go, look, let's go upstairs. There's nobody here. So Ken and I, we go upstairs, and above her in the family room in the back, above her is my master bath, which is pretty good size. It's a you can walk around in it, okay, with a tile floor. And so I walk her into the master bath right above where she was sitting on the couch. I said, there's where you heard the footsteps. Right here. Is there anybody here? And she's looking around. No, it's a ghost. And you just live with it.
Mm-hmm.
You live with it. But I think the ghost was saying hello to her like your ghost was with your wife.
Yeah. Yep.
And how many homes in America do you think this goes on?
Oh boy, I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm going to say every one.
I'm going to say a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I do know, at least in my thoughts too, there are certain people that seem to be able to, I'm not going to say attract it, but recognize it easier than other people. So yeah, that could definitely be true.
Yeah.
Yep.
I this is what I did, just like you with your ghost. I want your answer to this, and then we'll jump back into the conversation. Right after I moved into the house, I don't want to get into details. It's too much, and you're my guest. But anyway, I'm in bed. Movement and noise is coming from the master bath, right off to my right, and like in the walk-in closet. And I said, I'm not getting up. do your thing. I'm going to read my iPad. I'm going to watch some TV, but I'm not walking in there. Okay. I know you want my attention, but it's not going to happen. So anyway, about a minute later, and I'm reading, nothing happens. Right. About a minute later, I went, dude, you're friggin' talking to a ghost. You are an adult, and you're literally out loud, not in my mind. Right. I'm talking to a ghost.
Yeah. Yep. It's funny because because of what I do, I get a lot of people that will contact me and say, I think I have a ghost. I think, this is what's going on. And you would be amazed at how many times I've helped them fix it by saying, you know what, you just got to be vocal and say, hey, you're welcome here. This is my house now, but I really need you to stop scaring my kids, being noisy, waking me up. And it's like I tell people, if you went out on the street and met 10 people, 9 of them would be pretty decent people. It's just that 1 out of 10 that's going to be a jerk. And it's the same with the afterlife people. If you were a jerk in life, you're going to be a jerk in the afterlife. And so it's really that 1 in 10 that you got to look out for when you're dealing with that. So, but it's been interesting, the number of people who come back and be like, yeah, if I was just vocal and said, hey, you're waking me up, or you're scaring me, or you're scaring my kids, and it goes away, which is, I find that really fascinating. So.
Well, okay, so you've written 9 books, right? New one's on Idaho. But 9 books on this, and you should call it the Bridgerland Triangle. I'm just saying, I'm giving you a suggestion, right? Yeah. The Bridgerland Triangle, because I've mapped it out, and I've looked at it. I was like, yeah, exactly.
Kind of like a triangle, yeah.
Is there something more common than others? I'm referring to Bigfoot and cryptids and ghosts and UFOs and whatever. Is there one thing that happens more than others in the Bridgerland Triangle?
Well, with me collecting stories over the years, there's definitely more ghost stories. At least in my opinion, it goes, there's more ghost stories, and then UFO stories, and then maybe Bigfoot stories and cryptids, and then you start getting out there with, you've got mimics, and you've got the Fae stories, and you've got glitches in the Matrix. Actually, glitches would be right after Bigfoot now, because for some reason, like, that seems to be one that I get more of than Bigfoot or anything like that. So it definitely goes like that. I think ghosts are more prevalent around people for some reason. But then, yeah, they get rarer and rarer the further out you get. And so, and one of the things is, I've always said that in order for a story to go into my book, I have to be able to talk to the person that it happened to. And so, some of those are really rare. Like, for example, Fae stories, or things of that nature are really rare, and there's definitely more ghost stories out there.
Is it geographic?
The more I write and the more I interview people, because I have done, like, the vast majority is definitely the Western United States, but some of my stories go out. The furthest ones I've gotten I've gotten some from Canada. I've got 1 or 2 from Australia, a couple from Brazil and South America, 1 from Germany, and a couple from England. So it's definitely, I think each area has almost its own, just like it has its own history, it has its own kind of niche when it comes to the paranormal. I think it's just a little bit different. I love, like, in England, reading stories or hearing stories about people seeing Roman soldiers, marching along the road, or things of that nature. And then
I would love to experience that.
Yeah, I would too.
I out here in the West, it's, you have ghost towns, right? And there's a place not where I live. I live in the Mojave Desert. So around me, a lot of old mining, oil, right, and stuff for these little towns that were built. Right next to me is a ghost town called Mentryville. Right, you can look it up. You can look it up. It's crazy. And there's Mentryville, but north of me is another town called Rosamond, and right around it, right, ghost towns. They're ever so when you go to these ghost towns, what the amount of ghosts that are there, it's got to be countless. Well, I mean, whoever lived there died there, and probably died very violently, right? And where Bridgerland is, that's the Old West. The Mormons didn't have a foothold yet when those gunslingers were rolling through. There was no law. There was nothing. You could do whatever you want with no repercussions, just about. And it was a very violent time. So, yes, there must be a lot of ghosts and spirits and lost souls.
There is, yeah. And it's so weird when things come up. There's a small town just over, it's a little ways from me. It's called Perry. And not too long ago, I was reading about a story. This gentleman bought just a plot of land and built his house. And when he was digging the line for his water line, he hit a coffin. And they come out and looked, and they
I laughed.
I know, and right?
But
come to find out that the plot of land he bought was an old cemetery that had been lost in like the things, and now he's living on land which is basically a cemetery. And because there's no map, they kind of had to go out and like they dig his water line, and they'd find some coffins and they would move them to the cemetery. And then how many of those are out there, it's and not too long ago, they had 2 instances here in Cache Valley where I live, where the city went to go widen the road and found bones, and they had to call the state coroner, and he came out and said, well, these are from the 1800s. We have no idea who they are. And so they had to move them. And I think it was a year ago, this happened in Logan, Utah, which is not too far from me. They were putting in a roundabout and found a grave. And so they went looking through the archives to try and find out who this possibly could be, because it was near the cemetery, but not in the cemetery. And this whole story came out about in the 1800s, this guy, they had his name and I can't remember what it was. He had killed this girl and he was in the jail, and the townsfolk just went down and hung him without a trial and buried him in this basically unmarked grave. And so the city now had to find a burial spot for him. But it's just crazy that, like you say, in the Wild West out here, you can buy land and then accidentally find, a graveyard in your backyard.
I was on my Harley last year. I'm riding in the mountains out here. So I'm in the Mojave Desert, but next to me, we're surrounded by this mountain. It's majestic. It's beautiful. I'm up in the mountains on this road, and I find this spot way up high with the Mojave Desert in front of me. I'm like, man, great spot for a picture. Yeah, this is great. And the fire line had come down, so the burnt black trees were on one side, and then the desert on the end, and this line. It was a great spot for pictures. So I get off my bike, and I get about 15, 20 yards on this ridge, and I'm overlooking the thing, and I'm taking pictures. And I come up over this little hill on the top of this mountain, a grave. All by itself. There is nothing for 10 miles in each direction. And it's a grave. Mm-hmm. It's about 15 feet by maybe 6 feet with rocks in a rectangle around it, with a tall, unmarked cross made with a couple of beam, I don't know, 6 by 6 beam, a tall. And I was like, well, would you look at that? You know, and
Yeah.
so I took a bunch of pictures and I
Yeah.
posted them, but I'm in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
an unmarked grave, you know,
Yeah.
just sitting there. Yeah, welcome to the West, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you think about it, all the people who, were traveling to Oregon or Utah or California, if you were going along and your loved one died, you buried them right there, and kept going. So there's stuff like that all the way around. And because of that, there's a lot of paranormal stuff that's all around because of that. So
Now, with the popularity of Skinwalker Ranch, we are starting to become familiar with not only geography and a location and possibly ley lines. Is it granite? Is it core? Is it the indigenous cultures and their history of what they talk about? So you have all of that, and then you have the high strangeness of UFOs up in the sky.
mhm.
That's the part, and it just seems that Utah has all of these things.
It does, and that area where, Skinwalker Ranch is, just kinda basically towards the west and north, is this big mountain range that's called the Uinta Mountains,
Hmm.
and it is the most strange, weird place. I have gotten so many stories out of there, but what's funny is it's everything from ghosts to strange people that disappear to Bigfoot. That whole area, the Uinta Mountains, has just got so many stories. One of my favorite ones that I got, I interviewed this gentleman, and him and his buddy back in the 80s. They would just go up in the Uintas and look around because it's also known for supposedly buried Spanish gold. The Spanish had gold mines all the way through there, and then the Native Americans had a revolt, and when they did that and kicked them out, they buried the gold. So there's a lot of these old timers that used to go look for the gold, and these two would do that. And they had hiked back into this lake, and they camped, and they'd just gone to bed, and there was this light that woke them up, and they walked down towards the lake, and down near the lake was what they thought was one of these silver Airstream trailers sitting there, and they could see people inside walking, and the door was open, and this figure came out and looked at them, and they were looking at each other, and they're like, we hiked in here, and apparently somebody's cut a road because now there's an Airstream trailer up here. And so they're like, we're going to go to bed, and in the morning we'll come down and find out how these guys, where this road is, because they spent like 2 or 3 hours hiking in. The next morning they go there. There's no Airstream trailer. There's no road. There's just marks where this thing had been sitting. And then it hit both of them that it was a UFO that had landed. And they actually saw the occupants. And they were like, oh my gosh. And there was just circles where in the ground on the sagebrush where it had been smashed flat, where it had been sitting. And he was like, we were not very far from this thing. We thought it was an Airstream trailer because it was silver, it was round,
Sure.
it looked like that, and then it ended up not being that. So, and that was in the Uintas, not too far from the Skinwalker Ranch up there.
Wow,
Yeah.
man, that just gets my mind going in a bunch of things. See, there's also the question of time slips.
Mhm.
Right, where people are seeing stuff like that Airstream, or somebody sees a covered wagon. Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah, look at
Yeah.
these actors out here are they shooting a video? This is incredible. And then they go get their friends and they come back to point out the covered wagon and it's gone.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I have a story that
Please,
went right along with that. So not too far from where I live, they have what's called it's a historical farm where they do things, and the kids can come from school and they show them how they used to live in the old days. And
Reenactments, that
yeah,
kind of
reenactments and that kind of
Right.
thing. Well, there was this lady and her mom that were driving near that, and they saw a covered wagon train out in the field moving, and she was like, man, that's just, they're really gone out this year, because look how accurate that is. There's little kids by it, running along the
looks
thing.
so real.
Looks so real, right? And so they drive past, and her mom's like, I got to get a picture of that. And so they turn around and go back, and there's nothing there. It's gone.
Right.
And so she calls them the next day, and they're like, yeah, we don't have anything going on like that around here. There's nothing like that. But
I had a guest call in one night on a call-in night, and she tells almost the exact same story. She says when she was a kid, early 70s, she's in the back of her station wagon with her brothers and sisters, the family, right? And they're in the West and heading west. And I think it was like in Arizona or something. Anyway, pull over, rest stop, picnic table, mom putting everything out, right? Okay, kids out playing. She wanders off, comes over this ridge and sees friggin' wagon train. And she sees a campfire. She sees kids playing, horses, right? The whole thing. Oh, everything going on across this river. And she sees this sign that's there, and she reads it. This is where the wagon trains came from the East Coast and are traveling west. And she's reading this thing at the site. So she goes back to get the family. You guys got to see this, man. It's going on over, and takes the family up to where and look, gone.
Yep.
Gone. And of course, she's a little girl, and they're going, man, he made it up. No, I didn't. And yeah, fascinating story, nearly identical to yours. So this stuff does happen.
And just another one that I remember that was very similar to this, that I loved too, because the guy had so much detail that he was talking about. He was actually hunting mule deer in Montana, and he was sitting on this ridge just watching, glassing, and right below him came 6 guys on horses. And then as they come out, they were all in Native American buckskins. They had their ponies painted. They were on bareback. And he's like, oh my gosh, these guys are really going all out with this, and it was, 5 or 6 Native Americans on that, but they walked right down past him, not very far. Like, he had a good detail of how the horses were painted. And as they walk through the trees in front of him, they just vanish. They're gone. As they walk into the trees right in front of him, it's like they walk behind the trees.
What do you think is going on with these things like that?
Sometimes I think it might be ghosts, but I think sometimes there's some sort of like a portal or something where people get a glimpse of the past. They're almost seeing through a doorway into the past, because a lot of times, especially like this individual that was talking about it, it wasn't like he was seeing a phantom that you could see through or something like that. It was very real to him from where he was sitting, but they didn't seem to see him. So it was almost like a one-way door that he was seeing through. And I think that can happen sometimes. I'm not sure how, but because
you're not seeing a ghost or spirits. Yeah. You're seeing the past.
Right?
Wow.
And the more I read about quantum physics, the more they talk about how, like, time is a concept that we live in this 3-dimensional realm, and that somehow there's got to be a way that it folds back. I don't know exactly how it folds back on itself to where we can see stuff like that, because that kind of stuff happens a lot. There's a lot of stories about Gettysburg like that, where people they think reenactments, but there's no reenactments going on. Or there was a story I read not too long ago about 2 guys who were in a reenactment, and they were taking a break and standing there, and this guy walked up to him, and they were like, oh man, this guy's blood and everything is like really real. And he just looked at them really weird and then disappeared right in front of the two of them. So that could be ghosts, of course, but you just don't know.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. And I wonder how many people see stuff like this and dismiss it and move on with life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to ask people, just go back to that weird crap that happened to you and unpack that moment. What do you think is actually, when I was a kid, I drove by a house for rent sign. I drive past it. I'm 18, 19 years old. I went, oh man, awesome house. I turn around, go up, look in the window. There's a graveyard next door behind the thing. It was in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I look in the window, man. I see it. I jump in my car. I pick up some friends. I go, man, you're not going to believe this house. It's got an in-ground pool in the front yard, white picket fence. Man, it's crazy. It's for rent, man. It's our summer party pad. You got to check it out. So we drive back. It's gone.
It's gone.
Friggin' gone. Gone. I'm like, it was right. And they're like, church, man, dragging us out. No, you know. You know, and so I now wonder, at the time, I just thought that I couldn't find, there's only 2 streets out there in the cornfields that it could have been on, but I just couldn't figure out how I messed it up. Mm-hmm. I blamed it on me. But now as an adult, I look back at that, I go, man, that was some paranormal stuff going down. Yeah. And I wonder how many people experience this that you know, they just life gets in the way, you know, and you just move on. But how much of this, I would say it probably happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny because, you know, that your story reminded me of this guy who I interviewed, and he grew up in a small town in Missouri, and there was their house and then this little field and then this old farmhouse. And when he was a teenager, this old couple bought the farmhouse and then they restored it. And he used to mow the lawn for them and everything. And they came and he remembers the newspaper doing an article because they'd done such an amazing job restoring it. And jump forward years and years later, he goes back there with his kids. They're traveling through there, and he's like, oh, let me show you my old house I grew up in. And, you know, his house is there, but the farmhouse is gone, and there's a new house right there. And he goes, oh, I wonder what happened. And so he knocks on the door, and it's a younger lady. And he goes, oh, I was just wondering what happened to the old couple. And she goes, oh, that was my parents. They purchased this old house, but they decided to tear it down and build a new one because they didn't want to deal with all the old problems. And he's like, yeah, didn't they restore it? And she's like, no, they tore it down. And he takes his kids and drives to the library and tries to find, you know, the article that was written on it, and he can't find it. And now it's almost like it's changed because he's the only one that remembers it that way. And he's like, I used to mow the lawn there every week. You know, I mowed the lawn for him. You know, I remember the old house. I remember the smell when I walked in there, and now it never existed, which is so weird.
Man, that would mess with me.
Yeah.
How many stories have we heard about people driving down a street that they've driven down a million times, and it turns to black and white, right? Yeah. And you know what I mean? Where they see their old school where a shopping center is now, or whatever, right? Yeah. And they're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And then they turn back around and everything goes back to normal.
Yeah.
I think this is more common than uncommon. Driving through a time slip, a time warp, something.
Yeah. I remember not very long ago reading a story about a couple in Europe. They were in France, and they were on a trip, and they stopped at this little village, and they're like, oh, this is so cool. They've just kept it like it was in like the 1800s, and they stayed the night, and they ate the weird food and people talked weird and they're like, this is so cool. And like the next weekend, they're like, you got to come see this place. And they show up and that it's gone, like, or it's modernized. I can't remember. I think it was gone. I think the whole town was gone. And so, yeah, it's just, there's so many weird things like that happen.
Have you seen anything before we get to the break? Have you seen anything strange in the sky up there in Utah?
Oh yeah. There's the mountain range that's right behind my house, which is called the Wellsville Mountain Range, is very well known for UFOs sightings and some of the strange things that goes on up there, including lights and orbs, large orbs and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely stuff like that goes on up here. Seen some weird
what have you
things.
seen? What comes to mind?
Orbs, a lot of orbs I've seen from a long ways away. There will every once in a while be a light on the mountain, and it's in an area where you really couldn't have anybody hiking, especially at night, because it is steep and it is dangerous up there. So yeah, definitely some weird things like that. And it could have to do with the geology too, because it's, they talk about how like you say, the granite and stuff like that can cause weird things. They say, who knows, but there's definitely areas up here that have lights, like they talk about, that will show up every once in a while. So
you think there is the geography, of course. You think of granite and quartz and the stuff that goes on with that. There could be a scientific explanation for it, but then you have all of the indigenous stories, handed down for generations about these being spirits and what may occupy the land. What do you make of that? Because this isn't a modern phenomenon.
Yeah, no, it definitely isn't. I think there could be a mixture of both. There could be situations where, you get weird lights because of maybe something with the geology or something like that. But I honestly think a lot of times because they show up in places, for example, not real far from here is a place called the Bear River Massacre. It was one of the biggest Native American massacres that went on, definitely in the West, where some regular army out of California were coming through and slaughtered an entire village up there. And I get a lot of stories about lights and orbs and things that go on in that area that could only be associated with that kind of, the sadness and whatever happened there. So I definitely connect that for sure.
Do you ghost hunt?
I get invited to do it. Sometimes what I mostly do is just I interview people. I'll go out to the areas that they talk about if it's close enough. Growing up in a haunted house, I kind of like it. It's not that it doesn't excite me, but I've experienced so much that I don't necessarily go out and do the ghost hunting. I do get invited, and I always go when I get invited by groups because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't go do investigations like that on my own unless I'm helping a family or something.
Oh,
like
no, never on your own.
Yeah,
no, that's like ghost hunting your own house.
Yeah.
Leave that stuff alone. But when you're out doing investigations with people and things happen like a disembodied voice, or you're doing EVPs, have you experienced that?
Yeah, I have. I've gotten several on purpose, and I've got a lot on accident, especially at my parents' house. When we were visiting or doing something, we'll be recording something. I used to record, if my parents would record the grandkids, and then I would be listening to the video of them, and then I'd be like, what was that? And then in the background, you can hear somebody saying something that's not associated with anybody in the house. Like it wasn't anybody's voice right there. So yeah, definitely had some of those for sure.
How does the disembodied voice thing fascinates me? Sound, I know a lot about, right? I do. You can look around and see that I practice the art of sound. Yeah. But you need something in our material world to move the air, so you can hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. With a disembodied voice, you don't have that thing, that mechanical thing to create. And that's where you've got to step back and go, okay, well, how is it being created?
Yeah. How does that work? That's part of the mystery of the whole thing, How do because it's the same thing with your footsteps upstairs. If it's making sound, it's got to almost be, something somewhat physical, you would think, especially if you're able to record it, which a lot of people do. It's it's one of those mysteries, along with a lot of the stuff that just makes you scratch your head. If you're like me, sometimes you sit in bed at night and you're like, wait a minute, how in the crap does this work? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. A lot of stuff moves around here. I see a lot of stuff and but if I start having disembodied voices here, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not going to bring in a medium. I'm not going to bring in a psychic. I'm not going to bring in the Ghost Adventures crew. I'm not going to, no, I'm not going to videotape. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm calling a moving van. Two starving students movers.com.
Right. Exactly.
That I've heard them. This has happened to me a few times in my life. The first time I heard it, I was overjoyed. Yay, great, fantastic. After that, you start to think about what's doing it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, I remember as a teenager getting woken up in the middle of the night because there were two people in the corner of my room whispering a conversation. And on multiple times, I would just be like, guys, I have school in the morning. Leave me alone. And then it would go quiet. But if you told somebody that, they'd be like, oh, he should probably see somebody, for some psychiatric help. But it really happened. You know what I mean?
This is how I deal with it. I was lying, this maybe 2 years ago. I'm on my side, reading my iPad in bed, lights are off, iPad on its stand. I'm lying sideways in bed. And I'm facing my left. Okay. My back is okay. So anyway, I'm sitting there reading my iPad. I'm sideways. Here, let me do that. Okay. So I'm like this. And then this hand, and I feel it right between my shoulder blades, pushes me. And I'm reading the iPad and don't look. Don't turn around. Just ignore it.
Yeah.
Act like it didn't happen. And it's all playing out in my head, right? But that it didn't happen again. But it happened. And here's what's nuts. And I know that you've done enough interviews and heard enough stories. I know what it sounds like coming out of my mouth. I do. I sound as crazy as anybody else. I sound nuts. But now we've got to get into credibility. I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. It actually happened. And I'm not saying I turned around and saw a red-eyed goat with wings. And no, I'm not saying any of that.
Yeah.
But what happened. How do you deal with credibility, and how do you vet a source?
So I really have to go off my gut. And I don't pay anybody for their story. If I do use their story to say thank you, like if their story, whichever book it comes out in, I will send them a signed copy to say thank you for sharing your story. I don't, and with a lot of people, they want their name changed and everything, so they're not really looking for credit. They're not looking to wave a white flag and say, look at me, and so a lot of times I really just have to go off my gut. And there's been very few times when I interview somebody and I get the feeling that they're kind of pulling my leg, because especially if it's an intense story, I've had people have to stop because they're crying, because they're literally going right back to that moment and they're feeling those feelings again. And so, yeah, but it's mostly I just have to go off my gut kind of a deal. And then my wife, who's my editor, she helps me go through all the stories to make sure, to pick the right stories for the right book. And so that's kind of how I do it.
I had a friend, not a friend, but somebody that I knew, tell me this incredible story, right? I mean, it was everything. Blood dripping from the ceiling, whatever, windows getting crashed, cars flipping over, nuclear explosions, whatever, man. Just like this crazy story. And he goes through and he tells me the whole thing, right? I'm like, okay, all right. But man, so-and-so was there and so-and-so was there, and we all experienced this together. I went, okay, all right, okay. So I go up to one of the 3 or 4 people that were there. I said, man, so I get, dude, none of it happened. It's making it all up. I was like, and he sold it.
Right.
He sold it.
Right.
He sold it. I mean, I was like, okay, well, wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And then, and it's just like,
Yeah.
And I think about that too.
Yeah.
I know what I say, and I know at least most of, I'm going to use a bad word here, Mr. Mormon, at least most of the bullshit that comes out of my mouth, it was with other people.
Right. Right. No.
And so I've got that going for me. It's, what stories, like the ghost here and stuff, anything that I do alone, I kind of keep it to myself. I'll share a few things.
Right.
But when you're by yourself, it's just flapping jaws, man.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Your uncle that let the shark get away, but he had it. He reeled it in.
Right.
Well, who was with you, Uncle Bob? Nobody. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So there you go.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Oh man, John, stay right there. When we come back, I want to talk about your dad and your grandfather and their crazy stories. We'll do all of that when we come back. Our guest tonight, John Olsen. Now, the Bridgerland series of books, there are 9 out. The links for John are below over on our website and throughout social media. More with John when we come back. John, stay right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. I am hosting, speaking, and presenting once again for the Conscious Life Expo, the largest conference of its type in the world. February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. Speakers, and schedule easy. Just visit consciouslifeexpo.com. I will be hosting and speaking at the Sedona Ascension Retreat, March 20th through the 22nd, 2026 in Sedona, Arizona. An amazing list of speakers, and it's beautiful Sedona. Come and hang out with us and just go to SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. I'm heading back to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd, 2026, in Delavan, Wisconsin, at the Lake Resort. It is beautiful. This is a great conference right in the heart of the Midwest, where I'm from. I'll see you there. Just go to Contact Modalities Expo, that's XPO.com. I will be hosting and presenting once again at Contact in the Desert. That's May 28th through June 1st, 2026, the largest UFO conference in the world. Come and hang out with us June 23rd through July 1st. Tickets and everything else that you need is at contactinthedesert.com. Want to change your life? Want that paradigm shift? Then visit Peru with Brian Forrester and myself for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. A full 10 days of visiting the country, all of the amazing sights, and of course, the celebration of the winter solstice. It's all simple to do. Go to hiddenincatours.com. Come join us for the Monty Python Scotland Tour, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event where you get to go to the castles from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. August 1st through the 9th, 2026. Just visit HaleyARamsey.com. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut.
Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forrester and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. John Olsen is with us. He's an author and a researcher, paranormal of the paranormal kind. He's got a series, Bridgerland, out, 9 books, and the links are below for John, and you can go and check everything out. So your grandfather and your dad shared some tales. What were they?
Yeah. So, well, my dad had experiences, in the house when we grew up. What was funny is that he really never shared any of those with us till we were older. But one that comes to mind it was kind of funny. It was a Saturday morning. My mom and sister were gone. Me and my brother were in the basement watching Saturday morning cartoons like you do when you're a kid. And my dad yells downstairs and he says, "Bring back my shoelaces, you two." And we look at each other and we haven't left the basement. And he had ordered, from Cabela's, the catalog back in the day when you had to, call on the phone and give your credit card before all this. He had ordered some new hunting boots and they had shown up. He put the boots on the table, turned around to get the scissors to cut the tie on the laces off, and when he turned back around, the laces were gone. And he's like I said, he yells downstairs for me and my brother to bring back his laces, and we haven't left the basement. And we're like, we've been down here the whole time. And he looks all over the house and cannot find those laces anywhere, and he's still cussing us. And he's finally like, fine, you know what, I'll have to get new laces, whatever. And he went outside to go mow the lawn, and on the front porch, on our little, we had a little picnic table out there. The tie had been removed, and his shoelaces were hanging perfectly on the table outside, and none of us had even been outside. There was a few things like that happened that with moving objects that were just really strange. For example, when I was little, I had this airplane, and it was a metal airplane, and I'd been playing with it. I can't remember how old I was, probably only 4. And I put the airplane down on the table, and I turned around to get a drink of water, same place actually, in the kitchen. And I got a drink of water and turned back around. My plane is gone, but in its place is a cap gun. And I picked it up, and I looked around, and nobody's around. And I go to my mom, and I try and explain to her, and she looks at it, and it's a cap gun from the 1920s, like an old cap gun. And she's like, just go play with this, I guess. So things like that would happen where you would have something go missing, and sometimes something would show up in its place that was from a different era, which was very strange.
I love that when it happens.
Yeah.
I love
it was
that.
really strange.
I have this is actually it. This is a Harley Davidson. What camera am I on? I'm on this one. A Harley Davidson. It's thick. It's a keychain thing, right?
Mhm.
And so I get it, and I went, oh man. So I cut the loop off, and I was going to glue this on one of my helmets. Right. So I put it on my island in the kitchen. My house is clean. Everything I know where and it's just sitting in the middle of this island that's got nothing. It's just sitting there. And for a couple of weeks, I was walking down in the morning to have coffee. Just got up, and I'd walk by, and I'd see this and go, oh man, today I'm going to glue that on. I'm going to glue that on. A couple of weeks go by, and I just didn't glue it on my helmet, but it's sitting there on my island. Come down for coffee. It's gone. I was like, where, and I look around. It's gone. It's gone. I'm like, did it fall? Is it on the floor? I can't find it. It's gone. Couple of weeks go by. I come down for coffee. It's back on the island. And I just went, man, okay, all right, okay, whatever, and you just kind of got to blow it off. Now, I tell the story when I hear things like what you just said.
Mhm.
It's not a surprise to me.
Right.
I don't call that paranormal. I call that normal.
Right. It's when the paranormal is pretty much just normal for you. That's how I grew up. So
I thought, what I thought? I thought I moved it into the garage and put it on my workbench to prep, that I forgot about it.
Mhm.
That's what I thought. I thought, okay, I put it somewhere, and I've forgotten. But when it showed back up on the island, right, and I know I didn't find it and put it back.
Yeah.
That's when and now I just leave it in here in the studio to remind me of that. And that was last year. It never made it onto a helmet. But yeah, that's
weird.
and how many of us just go, it's my memory.
Right.
I spaced it. But the cap gun part, and your mom didn't know where that came from?
Mm-mm. Yeah. Weird. It wasn't and it was from the 1920s, and it looked brand new. That was what was also really weird. It wasn't like it'd been sitting for a long time. It looked brand new. So yeah, just strange things like that. When I was
Well, what
growing
about your
up.
grandfather? So that goes back another generation.
Well, my grandfather had this very cool story, which is actually a UFO story. So he was World War II, came back, and then he worked for years and years for the state road crew, where, in the summer they worked on roads, fixed them, and then at winter he was one of the snowplow drivers. Well, there's an area not far from here. It's called Sardine Canyon, and they were it was in the 50s, and they were in the process of redoing part of the road up there. And him and his crew went up there in the morning, and somebody was like, "Oh, hey, look at the mountain," because just to the east of where they were working is this little mountain, not super big, because the big mountain's right behind them because they're going through the canyon. And what looks like this silver thing sitting at the top of the hill, and they were watching it, and they're like, "Oh, it looks like just like one of those silver weather balloons has crashed right there." And so, they're like, "Oh," and they went back to work, and it got to be lunchtime, and my grandpa was like, "I ought to hike up there and see, what was on that or what's going on." And he thought about it, and then he thought, "No, I'm just going to finish my lunch." And so he finishes his lunch, they go back to work, and they finish up, and they get in their trucks, and they're headed back to the sheds, which is up in the other direction. And the truck in front of him slams on their brakes, and the guys jump out and start pointing. So they all stop and get out. And this thing that had been sitting on that hill all day started glowing orange, and then it lifted off of the mountain, and it silently went over and right over the top of them, just glowing
Holy
orange.
crap. Okay.
And then just before it got to the main mountains, it shot up into the air and disappeared, was gone. And so his whole thing was, what would have happened if I'd gone up there to see what was going on during the day? Who knows what would have happened, but it's kind of a crazy story. So
what does he think it was? Does he go with ET? Does he?
Yeah, he just said it was UFO, and he was
Was he Mormon? Was he Mormon?
Yeah, he was LDS as well. Yeah.
Well,
So
see, but here's the other thing with that.
Mhm.
All right, here's the elephant in the room. Mormons, you guys come from aliens.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Explain that one to me, if you will. I'd never heard
Okay,
that before.
this is what you should do after the
Okay.
show.
Okay.
You mean at LDS they don't talk about this?
Well, I
you
can
were
tell you
never
that
told this?
I know that we do believe that there are other worlds out there for sure. Yeah, other worlds, and this isn't the only place that has intelligence. So
Okay, Google Mormons and aliens in the Book of Mormon.
In the Book of Mormon, I saw the Ancient Alien show when they were talking about that a little bit too, and about all the other religions and their thoughts on that, which was kind of interesting for sure. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can hear Robert Clotworthy now. Salt Lake City, Utah, 1900.
Yeah. I love
can
that
hear
show. I love that show.
He's the best. I remember the first time that he called me, this was many years ago. He calls me on the phone. I was at Costco. I'm parking my car at Costco, and he calls. His number's and I pick up the phone. And he goes, "Jimmy, Robert Clotworthy." I was like, "Dude, say that again. Just say that again. Say Jimmy Church and alien theorists agree. Just say that for me once." And he did. Right there on the phone.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's the best.
So cool.
I found this weekend I opened up a drawer in my bedroom, cleaning out stuff, right? And there's an autographed script from Robert Clotworthy. I forgot that I had it.
Oh wow.
And
That's
we're talking about him right now. That's the other thing. The universe is trippy. Synchronicities, coincidences are not. Synchronicities are real. Coincidences are synchronicities to me. These are things that you need to be aware of. But do you believe that all of these things are connected?
Yeah, I do, honestly. There's just been too many things in my life where I have yet to meet anybody who has not had this very thing happen to them, where they were like, "Oh man, I haven't talked to this friend in forever," and then they call them or they're contacted by them shortly thereafter. maybe somebody they haven't talked to in a year or something. But there is definitely something out there that kind of connects us all, um, in that for sure. Yeah, I just don't believe in coincidence, especially huge coincidences for sure. So
Well, you don't, the people that are critics or debunkers of this subject, whatever. I don't back on them. Do your own thing. Just whatever makes you happy. But people that don't think that there's anything else to this reality, when something like that happens to them, they blow it off.
mhm.
And it happens to them, right? It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
But there are those out there that go, whatever, just a coincidence. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. If you haven't spoken to somebody in 10 years and he pops or she pops in your mind that morning and the phone rings, what do you think is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's just so many weird things like that happen that are just weird coincidences, that aren't coincidences in my fault. Like, so here's one that's kind of happens. So identical twins. My wife happens to be an identical twin, and she'll have days where she just like all of a sudden she's like really angry. And I'm like, and then later on, like her sister will call her and her sister has had a fight with her ex-husband, or she's had a fight with somebody, or right around that exact same time that all of a sudden my wife was like, I just punched the wall and I don't know why. And so, there's connections like that through all of us, which is just weird.
We're all entangled.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just, the more that I look into this, I'm trying to get to the answers. I don't have all the answers. I may not have any answers, but the more that I look into this, the more questions that I have. But if I've figured something out, everything is connected. Everything is entangled since the dawn of time, across the vastness of the universe. Everything is connected, and that's it. Now, why and how and who and what are the answers and what's the science behind it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's when it comes to Bigfoot and UFOs happening at the same time, ghost and this and cryptids and shadow beings, the man with the hat, whatever it is, right? Yeah. They all seem to be connected. There's something causing it that is fundamental, but we just don't know.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with a gentleman once who he was strictly, I don't believe in any of this. I'm just like you. I'm like, what, to each their own is fine. And this was funny because he came at me and he says, there are people out there who claim they're seeing this Slender Man now, which we all know is a made-up character in there. And he's like, how do you explain that? And I said, I know that people encounter things, especially in the wilderness, that will take on the form that somebody is thinking of or something that somebody's afraid of. And just because they saw a Slender Man, that doesn't mean it was fake. It just means whatever they saw was capable of taking on that image because they knew that image was going to get the most response out of them. It doesn't debunk anything to me because, in the Middle Ages, they may have seen something completely different just because whatever it is can take that, whatever form it wants to, if that makes sense.
Well, it reminds me of that movie, The Forbidden Planet. And the monster that was terrorizing them was manifested and created from their own mind. The most terrifying thing that you can think of, they generated.
Yeah.
And manifesting this kind of stuff, again, it's just so fundamental.
Mhm.
We tell these stories today, and we have these experiences, and we see things. We're not inventing anything. We're not creating anything. This is nothing new.
No.
They told the same stories in Greek mythology, right?
It
Right?
did. Yeah. That's why I love folklore too, because in a lot of ways that's a mirror image of what we go through now, just seen through the lens of people from a different time. And so it gives you another perspective on everything, which I just love that. And a lot of the people that I know that study folklore, they're not interested in what's true and what's not true. They're interested in what the stories tell about us. You know what I mean? And again, it's just through the lens of how we see the world.
I spoke to somebody who lived near Skinwalker Ranch. They own a convenience store up there, the family. And he's telling me, he says, I'm just gonna just repeat it. He goes, "We have a red glowing eye dog with no legs that lives in the barn behind our house." I go, "What?
What?
What?
Yeah.
How often do you see this?" And he goes, "Well, we pulled up to the house the other day. He was in front, and we watched him in the headlights run around the house in front of us and go back into the barn." And what'd you do? We went in the house. What do you mean? What are you gonna? Can't do anything about it. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We just live with it. And
Yeah.
you hear these stories, these skinwalker, type things from Utah, very common. Do you have any skinwalker stories?
I do. One thing I want to mention about that too is I think the phrase skinwalker has become a umbrella um
For
an
sure.
umbrella term for a lot of things that happen. But for example, this one I believe would definitely fall under a skinwalker story. There was a young lady who um, she would travel through this canyon. It was up here in Idaho. These two small towns, and there's a canyon between them. And this canyon is very it's called Weston Canyon, and it is very paranormally active. I have a lot of stories from this one little small canyon, but she had been babysitting for her sister that lived at one town, and she was going back home. It was late, and she comes around the corner, and her headlights hit this very emaciated old Native American man with a robe over him. And as she pulls by him, he gives her just this really creepy smile. She freaks out, and kind of speeds up and gets about a mile down the road and comes around the corner. And the same man with the same robe is standing there on the side of the road again and
Mm,
kind of gives her another creepy smile.
mm.
And so stuff like that is definitely falls along kind of along those lines, because how in the heck did he get that far down the road? He kind of matched that same energy and stuff. So yeah, and there's been a few stories like that, and especially with um I talked to an individual who is, I'm still trying to get him to give me permission to write a story where him and his friend had a run in with, he had friends on the Navajo reservation. And one night they had a run in with basically a skinwalker that was attacking the house. And, but he still won't give me the story. So I can't share a lot of the details yet, because I would love to put that in my book. I have a couple stories like that where I'm still trying to work with the people to get me permission. But yeah, there's definitely stories that will fall under that very much skinwalker type
And
situation.
it's about who's telling the story,
Mhm.
and where you just need to accept it and stay. I was my brother's wife, my brother, right? His wife and their daughter, right? The two of them were at a restaurant, or maybe it was in front of his house. We were having dinner. Doesn't matter. But the two of them are so. Her name's Mary, my brother's wife, and she goes, this one time when, and I don't want to say her daughter's name, she's younger, but anyway, she goes, we were driving in the woods. This is up in in a remote part of Northern California. We're driving out in the middle of nowhere, and there was a man standing on the side of the road where there's nothing around us. And we slowed the car down and stopped, and he stepped out into the street and faced us, and he had a long trench coat on. We couldn't see his face, but his chest was purple and orange glowing flames.
Wow.
And her daughter goes, remember that? That was crazy. And he stopped the car, and then he turned and kept on walking. I said, what? Yeah, he had this flame. He was like a hole, and he was on fire, and he had a trench coat on. I think they said he had a hat. Anyway, he stopped the car and then kept on walking. And this is mother and daughter, right? My brother's wife telling this story, and I think the daughter at the time, I think she was around 10 or 11 years old. But that's the story, out in the middle of nowhere where this person just pops up and then stops the car and then keeps on going. Didn't ask for help, didn't attack him, and didn't do it. So what you guys do, man? We yelled and screamed and then drove home. Never happened again. Never happened again.
So one of the strangest stories that I ever collected was from this gentleman. And it's been a long time ago that I interviewed him, and just, it's a very strange story, but I'm telling you, he believed what he saw. I'll put it that way. He believed what happened. So when he was a teenager, and this is in the early 80s, him and his brother and his father were supposed to go deer hunting, but both of them woke up sick. And so he said, I'm going to go anyway. I'm dying. I'm going to go. I'm excited. It was the opener. And so he goes up towards this area of Bear Lake, which is not too far from me. Bear Lake is a big lake that's between it. Half of it's in Idaho, half of it's in Utah. And he is just east of that. Well, he hikes in. It's about a half an hour hike over to where he wanted to sit and just watch the hillside, where the deer move around. And he's sitting there with his binoculars and he's watching. And below him is this opening where there's no trees. It's just kind of some brush, and about 100 yards, 200 yards maybe. And he's been watching all morning, and it's getting to be about 10 o'clock. So he's going to get up and move. And he notices in this little opening, there's a guy standing there. And he looks at him with the binoculars, and the guy is facing away from him. He's very tall. He's in a pale yellow suit with like a hat, like a 50s kind of, weird hat. And he watches the guy, and for about 20 minutes, never sees the guy move. And so he's like very curious. What the heck is going on? This is very unusual. Never saw the guy come in or out, just showed up there. He walks down there, and he's trying to be noisy so he doesn't scare the guy, but the guy hasn't moved. He walks up to him, and he says, excuse me. And the guy kind of jumps and turns and looks at him, and he's in a yellow suit with a yellow tie and a suitcase and this hat.
Man.
He says he's a tall, really tall guy, and he's got like alopecia. He doesn't have a single hair, no eyebrows, nothing under his hat, anything. And the guy looks confused, and the kid says, are you okay? He goes, I seem to have misplaced myself. And the kid goes, you mean you're lost? And he goes, yes, I am lost. And the guy says, can you point me to the nearest township? Which is, nobody says that, And he says, and the kid says, well, yeah, if you go down this way, about 5 miles is Lake Town. And the guy says, thank you very much, and then walks out and walks into the trees and disappears.
Whoa.
He's dumbfounded. The kid. He notices that he says it's really weird because there's this strange electrical burning smell that didn't match anything that was going on. He walked around to see where this guy had walked in. There's no tracks coming in. It's just his tracks just appeared in the middle of this area.
I'm out of there.
I know.
I'm out. No eyebrows. I'm gone.
Nothing.
Yeah.
He leaves, and he is maybe a half an hour, 40 minutes from there to his vehicle to leave. It was 10 o'clock when he spotted the guy. He said it maybe took him 10, 15 minutes down to walk down to the guy. He looked around for a couple minutes and then left. But when he gets to his car or to his vehicle, it's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So what should have taken him about 45 minutes took him 4 hours. He's missing some time in there. He doesn't know where it went. And he drives home and he's just like, I told my dad. My dad told me not to tell anybody. You know, he's 17 at the time. And he says, so I really didn't tell anybody this story. He goes, and he kind of came to me because he's like, have you ever heard of anything like this? And I was like, no, that's way past anything I've ever heard of. So, you know, it's just strange. Where did this guy come from? Who was he? You know, it's so weird. That's such a strange story. You know,
and then we have, well, okay, but there's more to this story. There's a Mormon twist to this story. Shall I elaborate? Well, you're going to elaborate. You got the Bear Lake Monster.
Yeah, there's a Bear Lake Monster there.
That's a Mormon story, and right?
Yeah, it's part of the Mormon folklore from there, and so it's funny that you mentioned that because I had a gentleman not too long ago, a couple of years ago, give me a photocopy of this. He was Brigham Young's assistant. Okay, Brigham Young was the original Mormon leader that brought everybody over to the West. From aliens. They were doing this trip where they went through Cache Valley and everything to meet all of the settlements to see how they were doing. And they ended in Bear Lake before heading back. And his journal reads about, oh yeah, you know, we talked to him about they need this many sheep and, you know, they lost this many cattle and they've had a couple problems with the natives. And there's a monster in the lake that continues to eat their sheep. And they would like us.
Isabella. The monster's name is right?
I've just never called it the Bear Lake Monster is all I've ever heard of before. But
I think she's a she.
Could be
Isabella.
Yeah. So so that's funny. Like in the middle of his thing about talking about normal things, he's like, "There's a monster in the lake and it's eating their sheep, and they would like somebody to come up and try and trap it." And then he just goes on with his story, which is kind of funny, but.
Do the sightings of Isabella, the Bear Lake Monster, do they still happen?
No, they haven't in a long time. No, they haven't in a very long time. So who knows? I know that there's also a lot of folklore up there, involved around. You know, there's ghosts, and it's a deep lake, and it's an ancient lake too, very much like the one that's near the California border, Nevada. Why is it lost me at the moment? But it's an ancient lake from the original snow caps from when, you know, after the Pleistocene and all the snow melted up. It's an ancient deep lake. Yeah,
it's a big lake. Bear Lake is big.
Yeah, yep, it's big. So yeah, not as far as I can tell. There hasn't been in several years, but quite a few years. I think the 80s was the last time I remember reading one about that. But yeah, it's a fascinating place. I love going up there because it's just so beautiful. it's a very cold lake. Even, in August, it's really cold.
Man, but running into David Byrne from the Talking Heads,
yeah, right.
in a yellow zoot suit, that's good stuff, man.
It
And that's good
is.
stuff.
I
And
love stories like that.
footprints that go to nowhere.
Yeah. Yep. I
Well,
love stories like that.
which brings to the obvious question. It's for me. We've talked about my disappearing house or whatever these things.
Right.
Is it portals? Is it vortexes? Is that what's going on? Did the zoot suit David Byrne dude? I said David Byrne, David. I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
is he walking into a portal? Are Bigfoot, big feet, right? Are they going in and out of portals? UFOs?
Yeah.
Skinwalker? Is there portal activity up there?
There's got to be something to that, because especially because of where I am and where there's a lot of wilderness around me. A lot of the stories that I've gathered have a lot to do with the wilderness and the weird things that happen up there. And the more I learn and the more I hear, the more I wonder if there is not something like that going on out there, where people are wandering in and out of portals, and where something like Bigfoot may be coming in and out of the portals, maybe even Bigfoot. I as much as I study Bigfoot and as much as I interview people about their stories, I have never had an experience, even though I would love to. I'm on the fence. I'm still like, I don't know, because there's two camps out there, and they're very much against each other in the Bigfoot world. The people that believe it is just an animal, flesh and blood, and then those that believe that there's a paranormal entity to it, whether it's portals, UFOs, or anything like that. So who knows?
Yeah, there's another reality out there. There is. It's right in front of us. It's just out of focus, out of, what I mean, out of frequency range. But it's this, but just a couple of digits off.
Yeah.
And there's something else going on out there. I did. I don't want to turn this into a drug thing, but check this out. And DMT is not a drug; it's a tool. But I haven't talked about this yet on the air. All right, but a couple of weeks ago, I did a session. Okay. And I'm going to share this with everybody for the first time. But this is the connection to another reality. Okay, it's just bizarre. So I'm in the middle of this session, and my eyes are closed, and I am going through a portal, kind of like a wormhole, and I'm following it. And my intention that I set for this particular session was, show me the universe. I need some answers for the universe. So I'm flying like Superman. I'm like this, and I'm going through this tube, just like what you see in the movies, right? This thing. And I'm going through, okay, but this is what happens. And it happens at least 4 times. Okay. Trip on this. I see coming at me from the opposite direction down this wormhole tube, a shooting star. And I see it fluttering, and I can kind of hear it. And it's coming at me, and it's white, right? Okay. Listen to me. It hits my nose. I watch it, and it goes boop. And I feel it hit my nose. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I'm doing but it physically, it hit my, right? Boop.
Yeah.
And so anyway, right? No, I'm not making this up. So, and I'm continuing, I'm doing this thing, and I see another one. Boop. And it's fun. It's cool, but it was physical. And it happened like at least 4 times. Boop. Boop. Little tap, little being kissed by the baby Jesus.
There's
Beep, this little
right
book.
on your nose.
Now, here's where this thing, this veil between another dimension, another reality, and us gets a little bit blurred, because this was physical, and I saw it before it happened. I saw it coming at me like a firefly or whatever. You see the firefly, right? And it hit you. What? Okay, so you see it and then you feel it. That's what was happening. Beep. Is that reality I was in, and it was physical.
Right.
And so when we talk about these experiences and these things, and David Byrne in the zoot suit, these are, you know what I mean? That's that reality. Did he just disappear? No, he was here. It was just that he just came into us for that brief moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lost. Yeah, because he stepped into our world.
Yeah. And he didn't end up where he was supposed to be or where he wanted to be, but he was. Yeah, it's weird that way. And I definitely believe that there are times when that physical, that realm between thins or opens up, and strange things can occur like that.
Are you okay with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep, I love it, actually. I love the idea that there's more out there than just what we can see most of the time. I remember, I'm in the car. This is a long time ago because my kids are mostly grown up now, but I had my oldest son and my youngest son in the car, and my youngest son says, "Dad, is magic real?" And before I can say anything, my older son, who was a teenager at the time, says, he goes,
Right.
Of course not. Magic isn't real." And my son's face in the back, my younger son, kind of fell. And I looked at my older son and I looked at my younger son, and I said, what kind of a sad world would we live in if magic wasn't real? And my older son kind of rolled his eyes, but my younger son, his face lit up, because I still believe that we live in a world of magic. And when I say that, I mean paranormal, I mean weird. I believe there is so many things out there that we don't know yet, that we're just starting to understand. And like, we have, they're talking about UFOs and in Congress and in all of this, and people are just catching up to those of us who have studied it for years, kind of a deal. And so yeah, I get excited about the idea that there's more in the world than just what I can see most of the time. Yeah, the boop. That's so important. The boop is huge. It's huge.
I ride a Harley, plural. I love Pantera and Rammstein and heavy metal music. Boop. I don't give a crap, man. I just don't. There's something going on. You talk about the Fae, and you talk about fairies, and we talk about, what these things, but we don't know anything.
Mm-mm.
We don't understand anything. Open up your mind and go out there and see this beautiful place, and go, and there's a whole world out there that we know absolutely nothing about.
Yep.
And I love experiencing it.
Yeah, I do too. I always turn, whenever one of my friends or somebody I'm talking to says, "Oh, well, they've proven that we can't, travel faster than the speed of light and all of this stuff." And I chuckle and I tell them, in 1901, the president of the patent office wrote a letter to the president saying, "We should close the patent office because everything that's ever going to be invented has already been invented."
Yeah, that's a true story.
Yeah, that's a true story.
There's nothing left to learn.
Yeah, nothing left to learn. That's before, we had airplanes and all this stuff. And
30 years later, we're dropping atomic bombs, right?
Yep.
Rockets, jet engines,
Yep.
stereo, radio, television, just a couple of decades later.
Yeah. And
Right.
you know, one of my favorite lines, and it comes from a silly movie, which is the Men in Black movie, when Tommy Lee Jones is like, you know, 500 years ago, everybody knew that the world was flat. 200 years ago, everybody knew we would never fly. 100
Right.
years ago, everybody knew we weren't going to go to the moon. What do we not going to know tomorrow? You know what I mean? And we just continue to learn, and we're just infants when it comes to this world of the unknown. And so then my thought is that one day, not that I care what people think, but maybe I'll be seen more as man, he was on the cutting edge rather than man, he was a weirdo kind of a deal.
There is a okay. I don't want to go off on a Hollywood tangent, but I'm going to share this with you and the audience. There is a new movie out called Bugonia. All right. And with Emma Stone, who I love, and Jesse Plemons. Watch this movie. Watch this movie. And if you read the description of the movie, because it's exactly what we're talking about. If you read the description of this movie, like, no. Watch this movie. Best ending I've seen in Hollywood in a long time. And the premise of the movie that you find out in the very, very, very beginning. Jesse Plemons is this guy that works for this big Silicon Valley company, right? But he's in the shipping and receiving department. But he believes that, and you got to watch the whole movie. This is the very beginning. He believes that the CEO of this company, Emma Stone, and she's perfect for the part, is an alien. Okay. And so he kidnaps her. Okay. And that, I'm going to leave it at that. That's at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
All right. And then, man, you get to the end of the movie, and you're like, what? So just go now. What, I haven't given anything away. Is she not? Is he crazy? Is this or that? Is it this? Is it magic? Is it conspiracy? Is it the internet or other? Whatever. None of that matters. Watch the movie and get to the end, because the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the movie, there's a half a dozen 180-degree flips, right? And you're like, well, what? Okay, I thought, what? But it's exactly what we're talking about here. What is real, right? What does Jesse perceive in his bubble as reality? What does she perceive as reality? What do we all, and is there something else beyond the veil?
Right.
Yeah, man. Go and watch it. Go and just Bugonia. 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 It's incredible. Has anybody seen it? Has anybody seen
I
it?
wanted to see it, but I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to. So
okay. I'm asking, no, Esperanza, no spoiler, baby. I wouldn't do that to you. No. Based on a Japanese film called Save the Green Planet. Really? Don't know. Bugonia. So Bugonia, Bugonia. Go and watch it. Do it. You can thank me later. It's absolutely incredible. So I kind of wanted to get to this, and we've kind of run out of time, but Bigfoot is another. Bigfoot, in the time that we have left, Bigfoot is a much bigger community than the UFO community. It's you know what I mean? And it's such a huge subject. Outside of that, have you had a Bigfoot sighting, and how much of that happens up there?
It happens up here a lot. I have not had one. Um, the closest I came, me and my youngest son, there was in a certain time in the spring. I think it's May. The roads open up because then the snow's gone and you don't dig them up, so they wait and open those roads. And so the Saturday they opened, me and my son went up. We love to go rock hounding and just exploring, and we came across some tracks. um they were not in an area where you could cast the tracks. They were along in through the dirt, but it was no clear spots where I could get a cast of it. But it was very obvious to me that it looked like a large bipedal person, individual had come through, which was very cool. But yeah, I definitely, with the number of people that I've interviewed, that I've talked to, that had experiences, I know that there's something with it for sure. What? I'm not sure. Like I say, whether it's a physical creature or dimensional or both, or I am not sure. I'm on the fence. I will tell you this. I just recently watched a show. It's called American Sasquatch. It's brand new, and they dive into that really well. They did a good job in that. It's done by David Paulides, and they talk about both of those aspects, whether it could be a physical creature or metaphysical. And without giving you an answer, they just talk about both. So and that's a subject that I love and would love to have an experience, but have not yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I spend a lot of time in the mountains, and I have since I was young, but still haven't. So
there's part of me that would love to go. I've sort of squatched. I haven't officially squatched, but I've halfway squatched. But if you go out and you're doing that with the intentions of, right, what do you do if it happens? There, and I've oh man, yeah, okay, I don't know if I would cut and run. Do you reach out and try to shake hands? I don't know.
Right.
But there's part of me that, because I've seen the same thing. I've seen footprint. The first time I saw a print, the hair stood up on the back of I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I've always been on the fence. But this is what I'm on the fence about. The phenomenon itself is real. Is it a mix of a couple of things? Is there just a flesh and bones species we haven't discovered yet that's out living in the woods and avoiding humans because they're good at it? Okay, very possible. Very possible. Is it an interdimensional being that visits us and goes back? Why we see footprints start and end, but we don't see, Bigfoot runs into the woods and then disappears, and you try to chase it. How many times have we heard these stories? And then we have the Patterson Gimlin film, which to me is authentic. I think it's real.
Yeah.
But or is it a mix of both that is confusing the situation for everybody? I don't know.
Yeah.
The phenomenon is real, but I haven't experienced it myself. I haven't.
Yeah. Same with me. Yeah, I'm on the fence. I don't know. That's why I keep studying it, keep interviewing people and trying figuring it out.
Would you squatch? Have you squatched?
I have a little bit. One thing that I've noticed, at least in my research, the people who go out and look for him and do that, they may have, a wood knock or a sound, but very rarely do they have an interaction. The vast majority, in fact, everybody that I've ever interviewed who have had a sighting, it's been accidental. You know what? They're in the mountains, they come around a corner, they do this, that, and they just run into each other. And so it makes me wonder about, if I go out and you look and look and look, then maybe they're able to avoid you. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. I have gone out before. And again, never seen anything. I'm not opposed to it. I go out, like I said, I'm in the mountains all the time throughout the year. So, and I always have my eyes open and hope. So who knows?
Yeah, no, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I just don't know what I would do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably I would wuss out. I think I'd jump in the car and split. That's just me. Hey, John, where can everybody chase down your work and buy your books?
So all of my books are available on Amazon under the Stranger Bridgerland book series. And they're available softback, hardback, Kindle, and Audible on all of those. And then my website is strangerbridgerland.com. You can get in contact with me and find out where I'll be speaking and doing some of my stuff. And then, yeah, and it's also got a list on there of my social media I do with Facebook and Instagram and all that fun stuff. So, and I love to hear from anybody with stories. So,
right on. Great conversation tonight. Yeah, great time. And I look forward to the next time that you're on with us, John. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on anytime, Jimmy.
You're the best. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
You too.
Perfect night on the show. Great way to start the week. StrangerBridgerland.com. The links are below. Thank you, John. What an awesome conversation. And 9 books out. The new one is Idaho. So go and pick up the whole series, 9 books. All right, everybody. Now, tomorrow night is, man, I do this every night. I space on what I'm doing for the week, and I apologize for that. Tomorrow night, whoa, big night tomorrow night, just like tonight with John Olsen. Tomorrow night, Dr. Heather Lynn is back with us. The Anunnaki tomorrow night, Dr. Heather Lynn. So until then, tomorrow night, all I've got is go backly tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go backly tappy.